Hi, my friend. Good morning.
Hey, we're
Ryan,
live. Good
yeah.
morning.
What's happening this morning, my friends?
Well, what is it? We got day two of going back to school for the kiddos, or day
Yeah.
three, I guess. But I don't know. Your kids got this like transition thing going on where it's gradual entry.
Yeah. So my youngest one is in kindergarten. So she's in for like 2 hours a day for the next 2 weeks, it seems.
That's very gradual.
Yeah. Very gradual. The older one who's in grade three, she had like an hour and a half the first day, and then she's in it now, full
Full on.
days.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Some of the
Yeah.
parents were talking about this yesterday. Like, just, I mean, I guess like, was it always the gradual entry, or is that now? They found out that's best for kids. Does that? But like, would that have worked, a while back when a lot of people were working like the 9 to 5? Like, it just seems like how do you have like a normal job and then accommodate these kind of schedules?
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I'm very thankful that we were able to navigate that with little disruption, little to no disruption. Our lives, just having to shift things around. And I wonder also if some of that is done for the parents as well, especially with the younger kids. Especially seeing my kindergartner go to school, it was like, oh,
Yeah,
it's hard to
yeah. Who's it
separate.
harder for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember feeling that for sure with especially the first two. Like, but the third, it was a lot easier. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, with each one of them, they were like, okay, see ya. Like, we're good, we're gone. Because they were, well, at least the first two were in daycare too, so they were used to the whole sort of routine of things, and they wanted, like, they were ready for more. But you're right, maybe sometimes us as parents aren't ready to fully let go.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I knew we were going to talk about, something that we started with my oldest a few years ago when she started in preschool, is every morning when as we were driving to school, so there's like an 8 minute drive from here to her school, we'd go over our 5 rules for school, which really I came up with, and they're really, I mean, rules for life. And I thought, if you're going to learn anything in this time of being in school, I mean, there's so much, and I know this is a rabbit hole we can go down, as well as the whole educational system, public school system, which I have a lot of issues with. But there are some fundamentals that are, I think, so key. And so we go over these 5 rules for school. So we go over. So I've taught them to them, and we have them repeat them to, like, what's our 5 rules for school, and then they go through each of the rules. So I thought it'd be fun to just go through them and share them, and then we can discuss kind of what are, because there's some nuance in there. These are rules, but these are not black and white rules, like they mean one specific thing. And these are things that I like, because they do mean, like, as life goes on, they actually do start to take on a different meaning depending on what stage, depending on what chapter of our life, depending on what, depending on what we have going on. So I'd love to share them with you, and get your take on them, and we can jam on them.
Yeah,
Cool.
let's do it. That's a great topic. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Four Agreements, and one of my favorite books. And just to have some simple sort of principles to live by, right? And to be able to, have them, and like, they might seem simple, but to use them or to live them is a lot of work sometimes. So yeah, for sure. Let's unpack
Yeah,
these
totally.
five.
So number one is listen to your teachers. So especially when especially when my youngest one was going into school, it was important that the teacher that they have, like, that's one of the things we need to just make sure that you are respectful, that you are listening, and also that, I mean, you're there to learn stuff. And I know that as we learn from others, we really learn about ourselves. And when we learn about ourselves, we learn to listen to the ultimate teacher, which is the voice within.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one's great. I mean, and you shared them with me already, and the first two. yeah, the word respect came up for me. And
Mm.
you might not always get, if I think back to my school, you might not always get the best teacher, and you might not always agree with the teacher, and you might have some stuff that comes up that's just not totally in alignment. However, it's yeah, I like this one because I think it's important to at least be respectful. They're the person, currently in charge. You don't want anarchy where every kid's just doing whatever the heck they want and not listening to the kid. I think it's important in that environment, if we've agreed that the kid's going to school and this is the teacher, then in that environment to be listening to them, at least take into consideration what they have to say, and perhaps in my wiser years, maybe the teacher was right and I thought I was right, and anyways, but I think yes, for sure, it's important to be respectful.
Yeah, and one thing that I find as well is like when right now when they go to school and when we go through some sort of program like that, the teachers that they get are not necessarily ones that they have chosen, because later on in life we get to choose our own teachers. For us, we know is Tony Robbins, and we are on his in his cult very deeply, and that's somebody we chose because we align with the values, we align with the message, we align with the mission, and so we get to choose that. Often, when we're younger, we don't necessarily get to choose that. But what I believe, something that I had an experience of when I was in I believe it was in grade 11. I had an English teacher. Her name is Madame Auger, and I disagreed with so much of what she taught, how she taught. She was like super old at the time, so I don't even think she's alive anymore. But she was really old. I remember, anyways. Maybe she wasn't, but I remember her being super old. And I remember a an assignment we had to do. We had to read through a poem, and we had to write down our interpretation of the poem and like what it meant. It was like an old classic poem. I don't remember the poem at all, but I remember writing out my interpretation of it and failing. Like I got like a F, or like I had to redo it because my interpretation of it was incorrect. There was a classical interpretation of what the poet meant, what the author meant when they wrote this particular poem. And I was like, well, isn't this a piece of art? Like, isn't what we learn from something, could that not be different from person to person? Like, how can my interpretation of something that, first of all, the guy's not even around. The guy who wrote it, he's dead. He's been dead for 400 years. How could this be wrong? But yet it was. And I remember just really wrestling with that. And my mom sitting down with me, and she's like, listen, she's like, you're right. You're right in this. She's absolutely wrong to think what she's saying for failing for this. She's like, however, like, recognize that this is a game. You're in this system. You're in this public school system. You could absolutely sit on, like you could die on this hill and sit on your value and probably fail the class and have to redo it and maybe change the way that the class is taught eventually. Or you could recognize that this is a game and see what's more valuable. Would you rather be out of high school, or would you rather stay in to fight this? Is this that important to you? And I remember at the time going, yeah, it's not that important. I don't really care. I would rather get out of high school and go live my life. And so even though I did not like the teacher, I did not like the way she taught, I did not like what she taught, it taught me a very valuable lesson that I still remember to this day. This is now almost 30 years later. I still remember Madame Auger, and I still remember that. And so one of the things that when I teach my kids, so listen to your teachers, I think one of the lessons that gets learned, or that we have the opportunity to learn over time, is that even if you disagree with somebody, even if you think they're wrong, like, first of all, consider what they're saying before. So I remember at the time, I was like so opposed to anything this woman had to say, and she was very opposed to anything I had to say. It didn't matter what I said; I was just going to be wrong. And at that point as well, I was the same. It didn't matter what she said; she was going to be wrong. But then that also robs me of an opportunity to learn. Because I think when we, especially in this climate that we live in today, and so 2024, at the time of this recording, we live in such a polarized culture. Everybody is, you're either on the right, you're on the left. You're either right or you're on the right side of this or you're on the wrong side of this. And people are not considering the other side. And one of the great things that even though we have this like TikTok brain, it seems to be that we have this very low attention span where all we need or all we want are these little snippets of information. The other thing that is also becoming very popular is long form conversations like this, like podcasts. So there, what we see, what I've seen is people that often have been demonized for ideas, have been ridiculed and chastised for things that they said that they believe, or the snippets of it have gotten out that that's what they think or believe. All of a sudden, when you actually start to like hear them out a little bit, you're like, oh, like there's way more nuance than what maybe you heard on a snippet on TikTok or on Instagram. And you can start to see, well, why did this person think like that? Why does this person believe what they believe? Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, so I can see how with your life experience, with the things that you've been taught, I see how you got there. And I think that's way healthier for all of us to be able to recognize that we're so much more alike than we are different. And if we just give each other the chance and give each other the opportunity to learn that, then we're all way better off. And we can start to have way more compassion. We can start to have way more empathy for people. And we can start to just really coalesce into something that's much greater together than we are if we're like super apart, right? And so I think that just listening to your teachers, whether you agree with them or not, is super, super important.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Totally, man. Well, appreciate you unpacking that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, what I also hear then in that is just respect and listen, like developing that skill to really truly listen, right? To really hear somebody, to see them, to be present to what they're saying, not to be off into our own head of, well, I'm not even going to listen to what you're saying because I've already formulated my opinion on this and it's totally different than yours and you don't know what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
acquiring that skill to truly listen, because, as I hear you saying also, it's typically not black or white, right or wrong. There's all these shades of gray that we can learn if we truly are able to hear what the other person is trying to communicate. Maybe not even saying, but trying to communicate as well. And maybe that's a lot to ask for a, 5-year-old going in kindergarten. But that, as you say, as they get older, the depth of that is there. And I think that also ties into one of the four agreements, which is not to make assumptions, right? To truly
Right.
be able to listen to what maybe they were trying to say and not go off into our own projection or, mind simulation of what we think they're trying to say, and truly want to understand.
Right. I think one of the other four agreements that I think that can go along with this very well is also the be impeccable with your word. In that when we are talking about somebody else, we can have the tendency to label people as a certain thing if we don't know who they really are. Like, so as soon as you put a label onto somebody, you've labeled like this is who this person is. Well, really, wait a second. Like, there's way more nuance. There's way more to that person than that little snippet that you may have heard. And once we start to unpack that, then all of a sudden, like, oh, this whole world of who this person really is and what they believe can start to open up. And so it really necessitates us being very impeccable with even so not even using our word, but not using our words also in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so there's a lot on this too, that when you had shared this with me, like I had similarly in grade 11, I also had a teacher. Maybe it's, young males around that age too that are, really pushing back. I mean, teenagers in general, maybe not just males, but just teenagers, you're starting to really push boundaries. You're testing authority. You're figuring out your own self and all of this, right? Like, for sure. I remember I had a chemistry teacher, Mr. Kenna. And it's funny how we remember these teachers too, right? Even though they weren't maybe our favorites, but actually how much they ended up teaching us in the long run here, as you shared with yours. So it's funny, even the ones that we think were bad, how great a teacher they could end up being for us. But yeah, similarly, I didn't, back in that time, being a little less mature. I did have a hard time listening to him, and I thought I knew better. And, it just ended up being miserable, right? Like if I was late for class, he'd lock the door and pop quiz for everyone, and I'd get zero. And that wasn't a great year. And there probably could have been a different way I went around that had I had different tools or a different mindset or a different way of approaching things. And um, so yeah, how it's a great lesson. I guess just the other piece is that, I want to make sure that sometimes you can stand up, you can listen, you can be a great listener, you can listen to teacher. And like you were saying too, though, there is a way to disagree, but do it in a constructive way, right?
Hmm.
And be able to question, to challenge. And ideally, a great teacher will be able to, accommodate that, right? Just to be able to handle the opposition of their idea and be able to work with it. Maybe a less mature teacher would get all fired up and take it personally and start to take it out on the poor kid. But yeah, I can remember, when one of my kids, I won't say which one, just to give them a little bit of anonymity, but one of them had an altercation at school, and had they just followed what the teacher said, if they just listened, they felt like they were treated unfairly. They stood up for their friend on the playground. Some older kids were picking on one of their friends, and they stood up for their friend, and there was a bit of an altercation, and my kid got singled out and got garbage duty for it. And he came home. Oh no, okay, it's my son, but he
Oh,
sure he won't mind. But he came home, and I was like, well, that doesn't seem fair. He didn't think that felt fair either. It's like, well, how come I'm the one that gets singled out here? So, I don't also want my kids to just be like, rule followers. So, I went back in and talked to the teacher, and I was like, look, this was what happened. This is what my son's sharing with me. Teacher goes and found out a little bit more information, and okay, everyone gets garbage duty because the older kids, yeah, we're also at fault here and needed to learn a lesson. I'm not sure if garbage duty is the right lesson to teach them. But anyways, that's a whole other topic. The point is that I think it's also important for kids to be able to stand up for what they believe, to listen,
hmm,
yes, and to then speak their truth and help them find a way to do that, and with courage and with respect.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because listening to your teachers doesn't necessarily mean accept everything that they say at face value and take it hook, line, and sinker.
Right.
But it's being able to extract lessons from any situation,
Right.
whether that is that, like you said, like that's perfect. That whether it is yes, go along with what they're saying, or no, wait a second, there's something here, and ultimately at that point they're starting to then listen to the greatest teacher, which is the voice within,
Yeah.
which when listened to properly and truthfully and purely, I believe will never lead you astray. Will always be the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I love that. You always bring it inside, and to just even plant that seed with kids, right? That the teacher isn't always the one out there, right? That they have this innate wisdom that they can listen to, that they can use, that they can lean on, right? I think that, I mean, that's a game changer, but I don't know how many, I didn't grow up with that sort of idea. I know, you and I have learned a lot more in terms of where we're at today, and we're giving that, passing that on to our kids, and we want even better for them. I just think that's a huge seed to plant for kids to realize that they have their own teacher that's with them all the time if they give themselves the
Hmm.
chance to listen.
Yeah, and I know for me, some of the most impactful teachers that I've ever had were not people that told me things, but were people that asked me things. So like we think about the Socratic method. So Socrates talked about gaining knowledge, not that you're just being something's being put into you, but that something is being taken or something is being pulled out of you. So by asking, so there's the whole concept of Socratic questioning. So asking questions to then have the person discover for themselves the answer. And let's say like one of my greatest teachers, and I harp about it all the time, and I know people are going to get super bored with this, but it's Tony Robbins. And it's never something that he actually said, but it was a question that he asked. And he also said the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask of yourself and of others. And it's been so true. Yeah, the questions like, what do you want? Like, so just something so simple as that. Like, wow, like that blew my mind at some point. Like that taught me so much. It's a question. Just ask the question, what do I want?
Mhm.
And so it's not something that is, just told to us, but something that is brought out of us.
Yeah, yeah. Even a simple, powerful question like that, yeah, can change your whole mindset, your whole perspective on things. Like, wait, I get to think about what I want here. I get to have that. Like to even just give yourself the chance to think about that, to realize that. Yeah, you're right. Totally. Power of a question for sure. Huge.
Yeah.
All
All right.
right.
So number two, be kind to your friends. This is something that we had I had a great experience with a super proud dad moment yesterday with my youngest one. She went to kindergarten. A week ago, she was 100% opposed to going to kindergarten. She was like, she actually told us, she's like, well, Ev, her older sister, who's now in grade 3, Ev already went to kindergarten. Why do I have to go too? She already went. She's like, oh, like I understand, I see your logic here, but
She's
no,
learned it all. She
it's
can
not.
just pass it on to me. I
Yeah,
don't need to go.
why does she have to go to? Why do I have to go to? And then 2 days before kindergarten starts, she was like, yeah, she's warming up to it. The day before kindergarten, she was super excited. First morning of kindergarten yesterday, she was super excited. When she came back, she was also super excited to go back today. One thing that I told her, that I crouched down yesterday morning when we were just having breakfast, and I said, Olivia, I said, here's something super exciting that can happen today when you're at kindergarten, your first day of kindergarten. And I said, when you're there, there's going to be some kids, because she's been to preschool, and her preschool that she attended was like in a portable build, like a little portable thing that was on the grounds of the school where she's going to now. So I said, you've been to kindergarten, so you've had teachers before. You've had to pack your backpack and have a lunch, and you have your extra shoes, like your indoor shoes, and so you know where where the bathroom is, you know where all the things are. There's going to be some kids there that have never been to preschool. They've never even been inside of a school, and so they might be a little nervous. They might be scared. They might be sad because they've never been to school before. But since you've already been and you can help them out. If you see somebody that's really shy, if you see somebody that's upset, you can go up to them and you can help them. You can say, hi, I'm Olivia, and you can share your toys. And she was like so excited about that. She's like, yeah. She's like, yeah. And when I want a toy, I can just go ask nicely to say, can I have a turn next? And I was like, yeah, exactly. And then when she came home, when they came home, she FaceTimed me. My wife FaceTimed me. I was at the office, and Olivia said, "Papa," she said, "Papa, guess what?" I said, "What?" She said, "I got to help somebody today." And I was like, it was
Yeah,
almost an
wow.
ugly cry, but I was just like, it's just so proud that she took that. Like she took that to heart, and that was something that stuck with her. Was that a memorable moment for her was that she was able to be of service to somebody else. And I think this idea of just being kind to your friends, never mind just, I think it could even just be shortened to just be kind. That even in life, never mind with your friends, never mind with the kids at school, but for all of us, I mean, we have no idea what people have been through. We have no idea what people are going through, and we have no idea what they're feeling. And we have no idea also the impact that kindness, that a smile, that a loving touch, just touching somebody on the shoulder, making eye contact with another person, just having genuine presence with another human being. And we have no idea how far reaching that can be for that person. And how many stories, I mean, this is folklore at this point, but how many times have we heard a story of something to the effect of someone saying, I was planning on ending my life. And then somebody like intervened, like somebody smiled at me, and somebody just stopped and was just genuinely caring of me. And I decided that I was going to, I changed my mind. Like I've heard that so many times in different stories. And you know, so yeah, it's just the idea of just being kind, and just the going back to something like we have, many of us in the West have taught or have been taught, like the golden rule, like teach or treat other people the way that you would like to be treated. So it's this idea, even later on, as we talk about leadership, like leaders go first. We don't expect that we're entitled to be given something. So if you want kindness, what do you need to do? You need to give it first. You want compassion, you want anything, you need to give it first. We do not lead from a place that we don't live. And so never mind waiting for your friends to be kind. You're the one that's kind. And I think in doing so, it provides our children, provides us with a sense of leadership, because we are in control of our actions. So what are we going to do? We're going to be kind.
Yeah, I really like this one too, man. Like I was saying before, it reminds me also of being respectful. The same word kind of came up as well as being able to listen to your teacher. And it's, I mean, it's a practice, right? And it gives them something to focus on. It gives them some guidance to use. And I think all of these provide a healthy framework for kids to, again, have something to focus on. Like, okay, something really challenging happened. How do I find kindness in this situation, right? How do I and to help them realize that they can, might not be the right way, but how to help them with those emotions that come up to get to a place of kindness, so that they can be kind to themselves and then to be kind to others. And again, similarly for me, what comes up is the first one is sometimes when other people aren't being kind, or you might have a disagreement with them, or you don't like the way that they're treating you. Well, here's a question. I have some thoughts on this too, but yeah, how do you help a kid or yourself find kindness even when you feel others aren't being kind to you?
Right. Well, and I think that brings up a good point. And like, what really is kindness? Let's say, like, let's give an example of, like, say a glaring example of when we're a little bit older. Somebody, say your best friend is a heavy smoker. Is it kind? Like, or let's say, what's more kind? Is it more kind to just say nothing, do nothing, and that's it? Or is it more kind to be like, hey man, like, this is killing you. I don't like this. I love you. I respect you. I value you for who you are. And I'm also, as a friend, like, it's like tough love. Like, sometimes tough love is the most kind thing that can be done. So kindness is not necessarily what some people think is like just being meek and just
Nice.
lying down and being a doormat. Sometimes I think, yeah, if somebody is unkind to you, the kindest thing to do to yourself and to the other person is to say, hey, stop it. Stop it.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things we think sometimes, like, even think about, like, the first one, listening to your teachers, like, we'll label people as a thing, as this thing. You are this person. But really, I believe that deep down we're all good. That there's goodness and there's beauty in every single one of us. And that when people are hurting others, when people are being mean to others, when people do things that is disrespectful and is bad to others, it's not because they are bad. It's because they did bad. They learned bad. The old saying that hurt people hurt people. That inside them, like, I can think of, when I think that, and I'm not always great at this, but when I think that, I can have so much more compassion for somebody who's being an asshole to me. Because it's like, who hurt you, man? Like, dude, wow. Like, you must be really hurting inside to think that this is an appropriate behavior to another person who is here to love you. Like, that's rough.
Yeah, that's a good point. When a lot of times I can remember back when, well, even with my youngest, but more so with the older two, when they would get, when something, I can think of some pretty dramatic events that happened with their friends. Uh, you know, a lot of times we would talk about, wow, that's awful that that happened. What do we think? Well, how did that make, you know, our kid feel? And how are they doing with that? And then also, like what you're talking about in terms of having some compassion is like, what do you know or what do you think's happening for that other person in their life that would have them, react or act this way with you? And almost all the time, my kids would know of something very significant that's going on in that other kid's life. Like, their parents are going through divorce, or his parents are actually abusive, or like some pretty harsh stuff ends up coming
Right.
out about what's going on for that other person. And not that it makes it right, but and that would be the conversation too, is like, look, if you don't feel good about this, that's not appropriate behavior. To help our kids
Yeah.
realize what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and to be kind to themselves. Like, okay, I'm going to hang out. I mean, that's been a huge sort of guiding light for them too, is like, oh yeah, it doesn't feel good when I hang out with these people. The kindest thing I can do for myself and for them is to not hang out with them anymore. I guess I'll be kind
Right.
in my interactions with them, but I'm just not going to be in that environment anymore. So, when something big's happened, yeah, it's not condoning it, it's not making an excuse for it, but it is being able to at least understand, to somehow make sense of it, right? Because otherwise you could make up all kinds of stories and, oh, it's what did I do? And it's all, anyways, you can go off into all kinds of places. But I find that being able to at least get to that place of compassion can help you find, has helped my kids find some kindness within themselves for themselves. Like that was bad, and I'm not going to let it happen again. And I can see how perhaps why that's happening for that other person. So I can have at least a place of kindness for them and wish them the best, but it's going to be
Hmm.
somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like you're saying too, is they find kindness for themselves. One thing my older daughter reminded me of a lot when we would go through affirmations when she was, especially when she was a bit younger, a couple years ago, is we'd say like, I love my life, I love my family, I love my mom, I love my dad, and she'd always remind me, say, I love myself,
Mm.
I love myself. And like yeah, so knowing that who is your greatest ally, always your greatest friend, always is yourself, or it can be. And I know that's something that I have struggled with. I do struggle with. I'm very challenged by just the idea of self love. And yeah, there's a book by Kamal Ravikant. Now the name of it is escaping me at this moment. But the whole book was about just creating more self-love and how to love
Mm-hmm.
yourself again. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
exercises in it was just to sit and look in the mirror and just to say, just keep repeating until you are moved to, like, until something, an emotion is stirred inside of you. Just to repeat, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. And I remember doing that, and it felt like forever. It was probably 20 minutes. I'd sit there and just look at myself, and it just felt nothing. I'd just say it. I just felt nothing. I didn't believe it. And I know that ultimately in this life, that while we are surrounded by other people, I mean, there's also this world that lives inside of me that nobody knows. And that I owe it to myself and I owe it to other people to also to show love to myself, to be kind to my greatest friend, which is, I mean, I always refer to as the voice within, like as if it's some other thing, but it's inside of me. So
Yeah.
being kind to people outside, but also like you said, yeah, it's being kind to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's massive, right? Again, that's again, one of those huge game changers to plant that seed and help kids with that early on, right? Again, that's something I didn't grow up with either. And without that, you can think that this behavior or this, these things that are happening, if other kids aren't treating you well, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I need to be kind to them. You can get into this people pleasing situation, and because if you don't think that you deserve kindness, like if you don't have that self-love and compassion for yourself and that kindness for yourself, then you can get into a situation where it's like, oh, well, yeah, I don't think well about myself. These other
Hmm.
three people aren't treating me very good. That's just the way things should be, right? Because that's what I deserve. But if you can get to that place, if you can help kids be super kind to themselves, to be loving with themselves, and to realize that they deserve to be treated kindly because they're treating other people kindly, then that gives them a wonderful compass to be like, oh, I those people when I hang out with them don't make me feel very good. I like to feel good. I treat them with kindness. I deserve to be treated with kindness. They're not treating me kind. Okay, I'm just going to stop hanging out with them anymore. Or I'm going to ask them to treat me with kindness because that's what I deserve.
Hmm.
And I've seen that. And it's tough. I would love to bring up specifics, but at the same time, especially with my older kids, I want to respect their privacy. But there's been many moments through the preteen years, especially grade 6, grade 7, where there were some really tough incidents with quote unquote friends. And I will say I'm super proud with how kind my kids even show me that you can be through some of these incidents, and they let the other people know that, look, that wasn't, I deserve an apology, like that wasn't kind. And they got it, and they were able to shift that relationship to a place where they did get the respect and kindness that they wanted with some of them, and some of them just aren't in their life anymore. And I think that's just, yeah, I think that's this piece around, just like you said, generally kindness. And I've been using this a lot more, like unconditional kindness. Like unconditional love can be tough because if someone's being really awful to you, like if this kid's being a bully or whatever in the playground, unconditional love for them, I don't know. Sometimes that I find that even hard to get to, but at least unconditionally kind, like you can be kind, you can have compassion, and you can have that same thing for yourself and be like, okay, we're just not going to play on the playground anymore here together.
Yeah, that's great. Love it. All right, number three, learn lots of things so they are there. I think about like for our rules for school that they go to this place. The whole raison d'être for being there is to learn things, whether it's academic, whether it's social, whether it's emotional. They're there. That's the point. It's to learn. It's this process of learning and looking to learn. I think as you start to do that, one of the things, like, so if the expectation is in any situation for our kids and for ourselves, that if I'm just looking to always learn something, that means by necessity that I need to be curious, because in any moment there is potentially something that I didn't know that I could realize, that I could discover. And so I believe it just fosters this curiosity, and curiosity can lead to being fascinated, and fascination can lead to something that you become passionate about. Like your mind is really made for learning. We have this neurology that if you don't use it, you lose it. And that we form neural connections because of the environment that we put ourselves in. And it's been said that if and when you're ripe, you begin to rot. So there's never a point where you're just like, okay, no, that's it. I'm good. There's always a new place to go. There's always something new to learn. So by continuously learning, we're really priming our nerve system for constant and never-ending growth. Like Tony Robbins again teaches us the concept of can I, constant and never-ending improvement. And I think that so every situation, every day, what we're gonna do, we're gonna learn lots of things. So either we're gonna learn from our failures or our mistakes, whether we're going to learn from our triumphs, whether we're going to learn from the things that we do well, the things we want to do better at. But we're always this. We also talk about this growth mindset. There's always something new to learn, and so learn lots of things.
All right. Yeah. I really like this one too. Yeah. What it stirs up in me is sometimes, and I know I've done this, is we can get focused. If it's school, we can get too focused, and I've done this when they've come home and like, oh, what did you learn today? And without thinking about it, I think I've presumed and they've presumed that I'm talking about the academics, like, oh, what did you
Right.
learn in class
In
from the
class.
teacher, from this subject? And they're like, not much. But if you expand that and just be like, well, what did you learn today? You can have all kinds of conversations. If you're just really looking at the broader perspective of, you've come to an environment that you are learning lots, you are learning around, you're learning stuff on the playground. You're learning how to behave with other people. You're learning what kind of behavior you like, what behavior you don't like. You like what subjects, you're learning, I don't like that subject, or I'm learning I don't like that way to be taught, or I'm learning I really liked what we played at recess, or there's all kinds of stuff that you are learning about yourself, about other people, or about the world, that can spark all kinds of great conversations if you have that bigger concept in mind around, look, there's something we get to learn here every day, all the time. It requires, though, us to be curious and open-minded, that we um, are going to learn, versus the fixed mindset of, I know it all, I got to figure it out. I mean, I know I've had that attitude in my younger years, and I'm sure there's some subjects I think I might have some fixed mindset around, but how important it is to just have that open mind and to be, I mean, curiosity is like a total superpower, to just
Mhm.
realize that there's all kinds of stuff that I'm going to get to learn today, not necessarily just sitting in well, likely not going to be just sitting in my desk absorbing information from the teacher.
Yeah, and two quotes, two lessons that come to mind for me. One of them is from Conor McGregor, I believe one of the greatest showmen and combat sports athletes of all time. He's like the modern day Muhammad Ali, in his ability to shit talk, but also to really bring into reality the things that he believes. And he always says that he never loses. He either wins or he learns. And I thought that a great perspective. And also one of my favorite athletes, Michael Jordan, he said, "I never lost a game. I only ran out of time."
Mm.
So his mentality was, I'm not winning. I may not be winning at this moment, but give me enough time, give me enough practice, give me enough of an opportunity, and I will figure it out. I will win. So that it's like, oh, like I love that. I love those. To take away the constraints of what we believe, that we can always figure something out, and by figuring it out means we have to learn something new. And like we know that if anything, and I always teach it in my program as well, is that if anything is going to change, two things need to happen: something new needs to come into you, and something new needs to come out of you. And so something that you learn about yourself, something that you learn from the outside or from the inside, that it's going back to, listening to your teachers, to listening to being kind. And that the more that we learn, the better that we do. So I think that's a champion's mindset, is really just, we're always in the process of learning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I like those quotes, those examples a lot. The one with Jordan there reminds me of, one of the most powerful words well, if kids are taught growth mindset, which I think is a super important concept to give them. Again, another one. I mean, yeah, we could summarize these game-changing just seeds to plant for kids. The fact that there's always something to learn. And I know, fortunately, the school that my kids have all gone through, the younger school, they have some amazing teachers. And I think for the most part, they're always helping them with that growth mindset, right? And for a long rant here on, just one of the most powerful words, short word, is yet.
Yet,
Like with Michael
yeah,
Jordan, right? Like, I haven't won this yet, but give me enough time and I will figure it out. And I know that's an important word for kids to use when, oh, I'm not good at math yet.
yet,
Versus fixed mindset is, I'm not good at math, right? And now all of a sudden you've labeled yourself, you've limited yourself, and we will create that kid will create that reality then, if that's what they believe. But if by adding that one simple word, I'm not good at math yet, now they've opened the door to be able to get good at it. Just, it might take more time.
I love it. I love it. All right, so number 4, have so much fun. So I think about, even on the days when I know when I was in school, it was like, oh my God, I did not want to go to school. And some days my older one who is in grade 3, who has loved school for the most part, there's some days she's like, ugh, I just don't want to go. I don't want to do it. But then I think about, I'm like, hey, but listen, let's reframe this. Like, you get to go hang out with your friends all day. You get to soak in a bunch of knowledge that can mold you into the person that you want to become. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun to me. You've got all your needs met. You've got a lunch packed. You've got snacks. You've got clean water available. I mean, this is fantastic. And I think one of the things it also does is associates fun with learning. That learning is fun. It's something that I had to reframe. I reframed so much, and I asked myself this question a lot, and I'm not great at this many times, but this concept I learned from Tim Ferriss. Say, like, in a situation, like any situation, ask yourself the question, like, what would this look like if it were fun?
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of challenge, like, what would it look like if this were easy? Like, oh, okay. So it's like, it just forces you to dig deeper, because like we've said before, the quality of life comes down to the quality of the questions you ask of yourself, the questions that you ask of others, and the questions that others ask of you. So in any moment, like, how can I make this fun? And learning is way better when it's fun, when it's something that you want to learn. And so if we think about just always learning, like learn lots of things, like we enter with this idea of curiosity, then it could also be really fun. Like, cause like, oh, what's around the corner? Something here could change my life. Something here could be the thing that I attach meaning to and an identity to, that can just take me on a trajectory that will change my entire life. So always have so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And you know, it is, yeah, as you were sharing with your kids, like giving them a perspective of, well, here's all the ways it could be fun if you were to look at it this way. I think sometimes they need some help, they need some coaching. I mean, as do we, in terms of seeing it a different way, because we can get locked into, oh, it's not fun. I have to go sit at my desk and listen to the teacher. But there's all these other opportunities. There's all these other ways to make it fun, and that's definitely something I've also shared with my kids. One of mine, there's been phases where they just really haven't loved going to school, and I said, look, like currently this is the agreement, right? You're going to go to school. That's what we've agreed. We've tried homeschooling for a while. Right now, the agreement is to go to school. Now you can go about this however you want. Like, this is your day. I'm not going to be there. This is your day. This is your life. How do you want it to go? Right? You can sit there and suffer and be miserable and not want to be there, or you can. And you shared some examples where you can find ways that it already is fun, and you can make it fun. There are ways that you can make it fun to give them at least a chance to be empowered to realize that they can make their day go the way they want. Right? And that's. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least it gives them a chance at making the most out of a situation that, it reminds me of, it's no different with work, right? Sometimes you're not doing what you love, but you can love what you're doing. You can bring that to, there's a classic, workbook called, I think it's just simply titled Fish. And it's the story of the fishmongers at one of the Seattle Pike Street Market, right?
Seattle Pike Place Market. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Where for a lot of people that could be gross and miserable, and hawking stinky fish to customers all day long in a noisy environment. However, these people have taken it upon themselves to turn that into something that's super fun, right? And world known now. So there's just ways that you can have a different perspective, go about it differently, make it into something that truly would be fun for yourself. So I think that's also something I hugely important. I say that a lot to my kids, is just, work hard and have fun. And I know that will tie into your last one here. But yeah, and even if it's not seeming like it's fun, how to help them with different perspectives and how to make it fun, that they are empowered to be able to do that themselves.
Yeah, I find it's so fascinating that anything and everything can be fun. Anything and everything can be an opportunity to learn. Anything and everything can be an opportunity to grow if we choose. And we don't always choose that. And to understand that not every moment is going to be our greatest moment. And that's okay. But those are all, like, think like this could be fun. Like, okay, how can I make this fun? Well, it could be, or we just stay where we're at, and we'll wallow a little bit and realize maybe later on that that's different. Yeah, and I think that really brings up, I think, to the number five, which I believe could actually be number one, and I put it as number five on purpose because it really is one that will just reflect all of the other ones back and really highlight why all of the other ones are so important or how they could be, because sometimes it is hard to listen to your teachers. It's like you're stuck in your mind, like you're stuck in a fixed mindset in a moment. Like, this person has nothing to teach me, or I'm like, I'm crabby, I'm not having an off day. Or you don't want to be kind. Somebody has hurt you, and your instinct is just to hurt them back. I've had that instinct a lot. Someone said something mean to me. I'm like, oh yeah, well, you are. Right? And where things are, you just don't want to learn anything, and it doesn't seem fun. But number five is, I believe, the most important one. It should be like there's number one, and then the other four should be remember rule number one. And rule number five, which again should be rule number one, is always, which is one of the four agreements, always do your best. Because without that, all the other ones just get fucked up and convoluted and confused and just complicated and complex. And sometimes our best today isn't our absolute best, but it's the best we could do with what we have available. And I believe that when we give it our all, when we give it our best, that we leave no doubt. And like doing your best let's say when it comes to school, doing your best. If you have like a hard test, like a really hard test, and you get a C, I believe that's way better than if you just like totally just like fucked off on the test, didn't give it much effort, whatever, and you got an A. And that's like I believe that C means a lot more. There's a lot more value in that C because you did your best, and I will have people consider that if it doesn't challenge you, then it doesn't change you. And so in every moment, above all else, always do your best.
Yeah. I'm totally on board of this one. I lost you for a second there. But we're back. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the four agreements. I think for us adults, even for kids too. It's a great resource to add to what we're talking about here today. And there's a ton of overlap. And yeah, one of them that I've also done my best to continue to learn from and to live myself. I think it's been super helpful for myself to realize that yeah, I just need to do my best. Like I can't do any more than that, right? I think it's really helpful because you could have this mindset of like, oh, I should be better. I should have done it this way. That whole shitting on yourself can really mess you up, right? Where it's like, but no, that's not, I can't do it that well, right? That's not my best. That's better than I can do right now. Maybe eventually I can get there. That's great. I'll have that as a goal. But what is my best right now? And then also too, like you were saying, like to give your best, like not to slack off and to hand something in that wasn't your best, or to not give your full effort to something and easily cruise by with whatever you said there in like an A, right? But anyways, yeah, I think that's super helpful for ourselves and especially for kids to give them that awareness that that's all they need to do, and that's all that we're asking of them to do, right? Like because otherwise you can also get in the situation where parents are like, you need to do better, right? It's never good enough. I think that's a super hard place for kids to grow up in terms of it needs to be better. You didn't do good enough. Here's what it should have been like, and to be constantly on them like that can be a really tough. I mean, my parents weren't like that, but there was, and I don't, I think I put this expectation on myself, and maybe there was a little bit, from my dad where I needed to get good grades. I needed to go to good school. And, it was a lot of this sort of, and I think that was the time, right? It was a lot of this achievement model. My best means that I have to, I'm a good person, and my best means I have to do it this way to this level. That's a
Yeah.
tough And looking back, that's a tough place for a kid to grow up versus, okay, I love you just for who you are and just do your best. Your best is always more than good enough. And I think
Hmm.
that's a great place for a kid to be too, right? So they can give themselves that of like, look, all I got to do here is my best. That's all I can expect of myself. That's all anyone else is going to expect of me. Yeah, like you said, it should be number one. I think it's a hugely powerful place for us to live and for a kid to live.
Yeah. I think one of the other things especially when we're teaching that to our kids, I believe that's so important because I know for me and many people that I get to work with, and we see a lot of people as we get into adulthood, that I'll have you consider that most of us don't even know. We have no idea what our best actually is because too many times we've quit. Too many times we've talked ourselves out of it. Too many times we've stopped before we got there. Too many times we allowed the voices of others to be louder than the voice within. And too many times we've drowned out our desires and our dreams in whatever guilt, whatever shame, whatever pain that we were feeling. And we really haven't given ourselves the opportunity to give it everything you had. It may not always get the result, not yet, like you said, anyway. But whatever that is, it's like keep going. Like seek counsel, find your teachers, create rules for your life that actually do create success. I mean, follow those rules as if your life depended on it and consider that they do. That really, I mean, we have to listen to your teachers. Always do your best to be kind to others. Always be best or do your best to learn lots of things. Always do your best to have a lot of fun. Just always do your best. And whatever my best is today, I know, like we were talking, is that's not necessarily my best ever. And to always do my best to do my best is to just continue. Like tomorrow is another day. Today is another day. I think it's the anthem for when things are beautiful. It's the anthem when things are shit. It's just always do my best. Like in this moment, what's my best? Like what can I do now? And like, can I get just a little bit more? Can I just do just a little bit more? Like if you're at the gym, can I just do one more rep? Do I have one more smile in me to offer a person who's hurt me? Do I have one more page I can read? And I think I always amaze myself that once I start to do a little bit more than I think I can do, I find that my best expands. It starts to grow. That I can do way more than I ever thought possible.
I apologize. We've had a bit of a connection problem. I missed
Mm.
some of what you're saying there, but one of the big things I heard is giving them that opportunity to figure out what their best is and having them realize that, oh, that's all I have to do. Okay, well, what is my best? Let's see what I got here, and to give that, and then see if there's even more that they have to give, but not, putting an expectation that it always has to be more than what they're already giving. That was
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I was saying there too, is that's a hard place for kids to live if they think that their best isn't good enough. But to help them realize that no, your best is all you can do. Like that's it. You can't do any more than your best. That's all that you can ask of yourself. That's all anyone else should ask of yourselves. And to give them that opportunity to figure out what that actually is, that's huge.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes is from French poet Albert Camus. He wrote, so in French it's j'ai trouvé en moi, or dans le creux de l'hiver, j'ai trouvé en moi un été invincible. Which means that in the depths of winter, I found within myself an unstoppable summer.
Yeah, well, That's deep. Yeah, to have them be able to lean on that when things get tough as well, right? Like sometimes your best isn't going to be the same. I heard you say as well. It's not always going to be the same. There's going to be days where they're off, they're tired, they're sick, whatever. Their best on that day looks different than the days that they were feeling great. And in the face of adversity, in the face of those winters and those challenges, sometimes they'll realize, and I know this for myself, I'll realize that my best is even more than I thought possible. I just needed a worthy opponent. I needed a worthy challenge to really find that in me.
I love it. All right, man. Well, may these connection issues stop so we can just cut it off there. Leave the
Hopefully, yeah, it all came through on the external world.
Yeah. So go live these rules. Go make up your own rules. And above all else, always do your best. See you, man.
Fantastic. Thanks, brother.